I have a lot of stuff in my studio, a lot in my collection over the years from playing in a band for many, many years. And I've used a million different guitars and pedals and cables, tubes, amps, cabinets, everything. But I'd always stick to a similar setup. I'd always have had the Boss Overdrive, the OD1, the original, one of the three original early 80s pedals. I've tried so many different amps over the years and cabinets and pedals and everything, cables, tubes, everything. But I'd always grew up on this sort of Angus Young meets the Randy Rhoads Van Halen style. So there was just turn the Marshall up loud with the gain on full. And then after a while, I started getting into Metallica and Slayer and those bands. And that was when the Boss Overdrive, the OD1, the early one of the three early versions of that pedal, I put that in the chain. So guitar, cable, Boss OD1 pedal into a Marshall JCM 800. And that was it. I had my guitar sound, and I don't think I'm the only guitar player that had that for their signal path. That's kind of like a secret, magical way to get a great guitar sound over the years for 25 years. And an SM57 microphone right in the middle of the speaker to the left a few centimeters, and that's the trick a lot of the metal bands that I grew up on and that you know, came out of the 80s are using. But over the years, you know, there's been different technologies and cables and pickups and amps and all this kind of stuff. So you try different things, and I would always come back to the typical Marshall setup that I was using. But this time, a German company got a hold of me and sent me an amplifier, which was not exactly new. A lot of companies have sent me amps, and I bought different amplifiers over the years. But I gave this Hughes & Kettner Chord Blade a try, and it was yeah, it's quite an amazing thing. Basically it's able to, without getting into too much detail, it's able to capture many different sounds. So you don't have that one Marshall sound or that one boogie sound. You've got the ability to get the boogie sound or the Marshall sound or any kind of sound you want, and many different sounds. And it's not a modeling amp too, so that's a cool thing. It's all tube. But so that's pretty well it. I used to use the Boss Overdrive pedal in front of every amp I've ever used. And then this is the first amp that I haven't had to use the Boss pedal, so which is cool. Because they're rare pedals, so I'd rather put it at home safe. Well, I have a lot of guitars, and I don't know, there's some companies have sent me, you know, I like some signature models from guitar players. I used the Dave Mustaine ESP model many years ago, back in 2000, 2001. And I used that for quite a few Annihilator CDs. But it wasn't the expensive 2,000, 3,000 euro model. It was the cheap one you buy in the store for, you know, 700, 800 euro. And that's kind of the way I've used guitars since I started when I was a teenager. I could only afford to buy, my first guitar was a Flying V. It was a Vantage Flying V, a Japanese company. And an F, I can't remember the model number, but it was just a Flying V. It probably cost me about maybe 200 euros back in 1981. But I used that on my first three Annihilator CDs, and first three Annihilator CDs, and it was a cheap piece of shit guitar, but it worked, and it had its own sound, and I like the cheaper ones better than the really expensive ones a lot of time. And I talk to a lot of guitar players like yourself, and a lot of them have the same thing. They can get the beautiful PRS $4,000 model guitar or the beautiful signature model from Gibson or something, but I always come back to the cheaper ones. So when I tried the Epiphone gear, I knew it was less money than the Gibson brand, obviously, but I liked it because it really makes a dirty noise when you're picking. It really slaps on the fretboard. I get to make a guitar that's going to go sell not as an expensive signature model, but it's going to be affordable to kids, but it's also not going to be a piece of shit. It's going to be a nice guitar, and I can prove that to you right here and now. No, it's really cool. It's set up so they can really play some good metal solos and rhythms on this thing. Sometimes you'll get an amp or you'll get something, a guitar that will sound great live and it just rips your head off, and the guitar plays great, and it's got very low action, and it's easy to play, and you can play a lot of fast solos and stuff, and then you get in the studio and you realize that the same guitar makes a lot of buzzing noises, and maybe it doesn't sound so good through an amplifier. So what I end up doing is I end up usually using a guitar that has action that's like this high off the fretboard, and the worst possible setup. So I'll take a guitar like this and I'll have to raise it so high that, you know, I guess sometimes you can really hear the buzzing when you have a lot of distortion on it. So sometimes it's uncomfortable to play in the studio, but I also use thicker strings in the studio. They stay in tune a little better and you can hit them harder with your pick, and they don't go out of tune as much. And live I'll just cheat and use the 9-46 Ernie balls, so that Ernie ball string, so I can really stretch it. Well, in the studio, I try to put the left and the right rhythm guitar. There's 2 rhythm guitars, one on each side, and I play each track different. I mean, each is a different take. Only one microphone, the 57, and it's very simple. There's no layering of rhythm tracks. It's just one guy. I play on there, and I play over there. So live, and it's with the same sounds, usually the whole way through. There's no changing sounds, you know, halfway through the record. So live, I try to do the same thing. My guitar player is also my singer. His name's Dave Padden, and he's been with me now for 4 or 5 CDs. Been around for quite a long time with me, so it's a good partner to have for my band for many years now. So in rehearsals, we'll use the same amp. We'll have the core blade set up, and we'll start with the same sound, and he'll just make little changes just so he can say it's different than Jeff's sound. But it's pretty much the same mic, same wireless systems, same. Well, I think he'll be with. I think he's got something going with Dean guitars, but I'll have these guitars. But other than the guitars, I think it'll be a very similar setup. Yeah, we just put one over there, turn it up, and we don't turn up too loud on stage either, because A, we don't want to blow our ears up, but it's just easier for the sound man, of course, to get the sound when it's not so loud. Right? Yeah, everybody's shaking their head in here. They're all going, yeah. We know that. We knew that a long time ago. He's not telling us anything new. In the studio, when I track the guitars, I think just the 57, I always go through this, it's called the Drummer 1969 Mercenary Edition preamp tube compressor. But I don't really use the compression, just a little bit. But the main thing with digital, of course, is you want to get the loudest signal you can without going over into the digital distortion. So I have a limiter on the apogee converters, and so I don't really compress anything. I just have the safety limit going into the digital realm, into the computer. But when I'm mixing, I'll just put, usually outboard gear, I'll put an LA2A or something on there, and just have the needle moving a little bit, not really. My guitar sound is not a tuned down sound usually, and it's not really bottom end, and it's not the big new compressed sound. It's more of a, you know, older school kind of Hetfield and Kerry King, Jeff Hanneman, Slayer kind of mid-rangey sound. So I don't really need to put it too loud in your face.